We continue to watch the war in Ukraine. And days after meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin, the UN Secretary General is in Ukraine today. Antonio Guterres is there for talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky. Not totally clear, but we are hearing those talks are underway right now. And the goal is to broker an end to the fighting and get humanitarian relief to people in Mariupol. Guterres says he knows it won't be easy.
The war will end when the Russian Federation decides to end it and when there is, after a ceasefire, a possibility of a serious political agreement. We can have all meetings, but that is not what will end the war.
Guterres saw firsthand the damage inflicted on Ukraine. The fate of civilians inside Mariupol steel plant is a key focus. Now, this is recent video from the far-right Azov regiment. They're some of the last Ukrainian fighters in Mariupol. And the video shows civilians sheltering in the maze of underground tunnels below the complex. Ukrainian officials say Russian forces are keeping up a heavy bombardment on the steelworks, including new ground assaults in a bid to capture it. Ukrainian defenders there are vowing to fight to the end. Ellen Morrow is part of our CBC News team in Kyiv, and she joins me live from there. Ellen, the Zelensky-Guterres talks, what can we expect?
Well, so Hannah, that meeting between Antonio Guterres and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is happening this afternoon. But as you said, this morning, Antonio Guterres spent hours touring areas around Kyiv that are now symbols for the brutality of this invasion. Bucha, Irpin, Borodyanka. In those places, Guterres says there needs to be a thorough war crimes investigation. And he also, Suhana, got somewhat emotional, saying that as he was looking at all of the damage in those towns, he was thinking about his own family, about his own grandchildren. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
When we see this horrendous sight, it makes me feel how important it is, a thorough investigation and accountability. And I appeal to the Russian Federation to accept to cooperate with the International Criminal Court.
And so that meeting, as I said, is ongoing this afternoon, Suhana. It comes just 2 days after Guterres was in Moscow meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, obviously, that meeting on Tuesday made no progress in ending this invasion, but there was some movement on evacuating civilians from that steel factory in Mariupol, an agreement in principle from Russia on getting those civilians who are in that same factory with the last Ukrainian forces in Mariupol out of that factory. That is the focus of the talks this afternoon, Suhana.
And Ellen, you mentioned Vladimir Putin. He's making new threats about the war and the support Canada and other NATO allies are giving to Ukraine. What is he saying?
Well, Russia is ratcheting up the rhetoric here somewhat, Suhana. This came in a speech Vladimir Putin gave to Russian lawmakers in St. Petersburg yesterday, threatening retaliation against countries that intervene in Ukraine and create what he called strategic threats against Russia. He said that retaliatory strikes against those countries would be lightning fast. It's not the first time we've heard that sort of ominous language from Vladimir Putin, but it does come as Russia's frustration seems to be growing with weapons shipments from the West to Ukrainian forces in the east of this country who are trying to hold back the Russian advance. We've seen over the past few days Russia repeatedly target Ukraine's railway infrastructure with missile attacks. But so far, Western leaders are pushing back against this threat from Putin. We heard from the UK's Defence Secretary this morning, Ben Wallace. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
You've seen the saber rattling and the sort of threats from Putin about effectively broadening the conflict, which is clearly something he would like to do. You know, he's in a hole, and I think he definitely realizes that one of the ways he thinks he can get out of it is to pull people into it.
Now, we also heard from NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg this afternoon, Suhana, warning this conflict could go on for years and that NATO is ready to support Ukraine for the long haul.
We'll talk again. CBC's Ellen Morrow in Kyiv.